Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining Foley and Lardner for today's presentation titled Fashion's Obsession with NFTs, Business Impact and Legal Analysis. Before we get started on today's presentation, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. If you have questions about any of today's topics, we invite you to type them into the Q&A box on the left side of your screen. If you experience any technical difficulties with the webinar platform, please refresh your browser or see the webcast help guide on the bottom of your screen, which is designated with a question mark icon. For attendees seeking CLE credit, CLE codes will be announced throughout the program. Please enter the CLE code in the polling slide that will appear on your screen. Attendees seeking Kansas, New York, and New Jersey CLE credit are required to complete the attorney affirmation form in addition to answering the polling question. A copy of this form is available in the resource list widget on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Please email your completed form to jmezquia@foley.com immediately following the program. CLE certificates of attendance will be distributed to eligible participants approximately 8 weeks after this webinar. As a final note, there is a short survey located on the right side of your screen. We would greatly appreciate your feedback on today's webinar. And now I will turn it over to Laura Ganoza to begin today's program.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And thank you for being here today for Foley's webinar. I am Laura Ganoza, the co-chair of Foley's Fashion, Apparel, and Beauty Group, Foley Fab. And I'm thrilled that Foley Fab collaborated with Foley's NFT task force in order to bring you this very timely discussion about fashion's obsessions with NFTs. Some of you may have attended other webinars hosted by our NFT task force, including the last one when Foley actually minted its own NFT, which was pretty cool, or the sports industry team focus one that we had earlier in the summer. But given the popularity of NFTs and given really just frankly everyone's growing interest in this area, we decided to put together this program that's geared specifically to the fashion, apparel, and beauty groups. Because as the name suggests, this industry seems to be obsessed with NFTs. And it makes sense. Who wouldn't be obsessed with something that when you see the headlines, there's, the $69 million piece of artwork that was sold that really, I think, was what started to kick this off more in the mainstream for people. But in, closer to home in the fashion industry, you have digital sneakers selling for $100,000. But, even though so many people are interested in this area, especially in fashion, the question I usually get first is, what is an NFT and why should I care about it? So you're going to get a technical explanation today on that, about how they're made, how they're sold, how they're resold, and kind of the business and legal issues that you need to be aware of with respect to those. But I'll give you a little preview and kind of a simple answer of what an NFT is. NFT stands for non-fungible token. And really what it is just a digital asset that represents a unique ownership in some other thing. And this some other thing could be like a piece of digital art, like Beeple's, first 5,000 days piece of art, or Artifact's digital sneaker, or the beautiful Gucci Aria videos that they recently sold through auction at Christie's. And while these other things, anyone could kind of take a screenshot and no one would know the difference about who's the real owner and who's not. What makes NFTs so attractive, and I think in particular in this industry, is that they are stored on the blockchain using blockchain technology, which makes it immutable. It's an unchangeable, for the most part, digital ledger, where the owner really can be verified to the public as the owner of this particular item. It's the same technology that uses cryptocurrency, but it's not a cryptocurrency. Instead, it's a piece of digital asset that gives the fashion industry what they want. You could really say you have a true one of a kind or one of very few. So not only does it give consumers exclusivity, which is something that people love in fashion, it also really gives brands an opportunity for consumer engagement by being able to offer these things to their consumers. Plus, blockchain technology also has other uses in the fashion industry because of its properties, making it immutable on the blockchain. It's really helpful to authenticate luxury items and to trace authenticity and provenance. So all of these things are the reason why it's becoming such a big thing in the fashion industry. And so we thought we'd bring together some experts in this area, and I'm super excited to introduce the group of speakers that we have today to help explain what this technology is and how it's used in the blockchain. Excuse the horns in Miami, it's very loud. But first, you'll hear from Kevin Calenda. He, along with fashion designer Nicola Formatetti, is a co-founder of Nico Panda, a fashion and lifestyle brand known for its edgy and playful approach to ready-to-wear clothing and accessories. Kevin specializes in media and entertainment management, integrated campaigns, editorial, branding, celebrity, and cultural content creation. After cutting his teeth in the fashion, film, and music industries, he spent the last few years building brands, managing creative services, and developing multi-platform campaigns with the purpose of developing meaningful stories and experiences that inspire audience through art, music, and technology. Nico Panda has really always been ahead of its time in terms of everything they do, including with diversity and inclusion. So it's no surprise to me that they were an early adopter of NFT technology. And Kevin's going to be here today to give us the industry perspective of Nico Panda's experience with their recent collaboration and NFT drop. Next, you'll hear from my colleague, Catherine Zhu. Catherine is based in Foley's Silicon Valley office, and not surprisingly, she advises innovative and emerging technology companies on business expansion, go-to-market and commercialization, IP licensing, monetization, data privacy, corporate governance, and risk management. Catherine has extensive experience with emerging technologies, blockchain-based products and services, and the marketplaces and community platforms where you can buy and sell them. She was recently quoted in Rolling Stone and featured on Financial Fox on NFTs in the music and fashion industries. And she's going to explain the legal basics as it relates to the creation of NFTs, the minting, selling, and reselling them on the NFT market platforms. Then we'll pivot to the more technical aspects of NFTs, good for those who are seeking some technology credits for CLE if you need them. So when you're asked what an NFT is, you'll feel confident that you could actually answer the question. So first will be my partner, Gary Solomon. Gary's a member of the firm's electronic practice group, and he focuses his practice on patent preparation, prosecution, and the protection of IP rights. Gary's worked with startup companies, both the technical and legal capacity, for almost 3 decades, including 10 years as a practicing engineer himself and more than 25 years as a patent attorney. His experience allows him to provide effective counsels to startups on how to leverage IP to support business and technology execution and exit strategies. And he's been providing this type of legal expertise to our last speaker, Andrew Hopkins. Andrew is a managing partner and president of Evergreen NFT, a new NFT platform that supports creators with the development and sale of their digital assets. Andrew has made a career with innovative technologies, leading, managing, and developing solutions such as mobility, Internet of Things, blockchain technology, and others. Prior to joining the team at Evergreen NFT, Andrew served as a managing director for various tech initiatives at Accenture. So between Gary and Andrew, you'll have some of the nitty-gritty, learn some of the nitty-gritty and the blockchain technology itself, and you'll get a sense of how this can be used in fashion, apparel, and beauty industries. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Kevin so he can talk about how Nico Panda entered the world of NFTs and Nico Panda's experience. So take it from here, Kevin.
Thank you, Laura, and hello, everyone. I'm going to start, let's see, make sure we get this right. So apologies, I'm going to put up the first slide, which, Laura, just checking, you can see my slide, the Nico Panda slide?
I can see it. Looks perfect.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Great. So just a quick, I think, background on Nico Panda and what we do. I think will be helpful. And in a kind of weird, wonderful twist of fate, what I'm about to talk about in the NFT collaboration really began with how we started collaborating when we built Nico Panda. One of our clients is Lady Gaga, who we've worked with the last 10 years, and my partner and creative director, Nicola, is her creative director. So 10 years ago, we started playing with her in music and technology, finding somebody like Zombie Boy, who we found online, creating digital assets with him, combining that with music, with Gaga. And it was really Gaga who kind of gave Nicola the title Nico Panda. Nicola is half Japanese, half Italian, and kind of is like a little bit of a gay Japanese bear. So Gaga had this kind of name from Nico Panda. And that's kind of how it was born, out of a friendship. And eventually we did a collaboration with Lady Gaga called Gaga Panda. So we created like 5 or 6 different animated versions of Gaga Panda. And I bring that up because when I think of what the brand has done over the last 6 years, all we do is collaborate with innovators, whether it's been with MAC Cosmetics or Pepsi or Amazon, working with Hello Kitty, working with CCP Video Gaming, where we started dressing avatars 7 years ago. Like way before people were even thinking about it, we were creating and stitching clothing on an avatar of Zombie Boy by Nico Panda for a video game, with the idea, because Nicola was always fascinated about technology, was always trying to figure out, how do I create a Tamagotchi today? You know, what would that look like for me to carry this version of myself, this little wonderful, playful character? And so Nico Panda was born, you know, which we kind of looked at as the character in you. What is your Nico Panda? What is the Laura Panda? What is the Kevin Panda? What is the Gaga Panda? So it was always about collaboration and playing with technology, with fashion, with beauty. As I said, with MAC Cosmetics, we did a huge collaboration. And when it came down to NFTs, you know, we were already, as we'd already had played with fashion being worn by avatars in gaming and had crossed that road, done it in some videos. You know, the NFT was like a natural progression. Like, oh yeah, we've already been there. Now let's see what that could look like. And there were challenges, as there are, as I'm sure everyone's going to discuss with this, is there isn't a lot of great fashion people in the NFT place yet. It's just not there. And, you know, where the art world, I think, sometimes is a bit ahead of the fashion game sometimes in its thinking and its adventuring. When we went out looking for the creative partners, you end up with a lot of the kind of bro community in techno. So hence the visuals you'll get in fashion are kind of these bigger than life women with exciting big tits and huge bodies, which isn't typically fashion. It's much more geared at that mentality. So there were challenges when we were designing of getting something that was close to what we do as a brand, close to the partner I'm about to discuss, which was Pablo Vittar. So what I'm about to show you and explain to you is the collaboration we did with an artist we work with. So fast forward, we're working with somebody called Pablo Vittar, who is a Brazilian drag artist with 11 million followers, Grammy award-winning Brazilian artist, 22, 23 years old. And we worked on their videos, we've worked on editorial campaigns. And Pablo last November in Brazil was on both the cover of Brazilian Vogue as a woman and Brazilian GQ as a man. So a really interesting opportunity of covering a well-known artist, certainly in Brazil, who was playing with gender and what that looked like. and then was doing something during Pride, which is, you know, a wonderful opportunity for us, the brand, about inclusivity, about diversity, and certainly about a community that we have supported since the inception of everything Nicole and I do, and working with Pablo and a variety of artists. So I'm going to play a quick video. I always think, you know, visuals talk better than words, and it'll give you just a little idea of what the collaboration is going to look like. And here we go. Get ready. So again, we're back to collaborations. And what we loved about this collaboration was we were working with some really wonderful artists, Charlie XCX, Troy Sivan, who we've also worked with before. So we were in really nice company with 5 artists who were also collaborating with other digital creators to create NFTs. It was for a wonderful cause. It was serving GLAAD, a great organization that gives back to the LGBTQ community. So it was a really nice ecosystem to be in there. There was creativity, there was music, there was fashion, there was a give back, all of which I think to, I will say specifically this young generation, but I would hope to any generation, is really important. I think anything we buy, sell, or exchanging, we want to know is doing something good or is helping the world in some way or another. There's a give back. So first there was that, which was nice. Now I'm going to talk a bit about the design process, which I think might be helpful for you to understand. So from Nicola's perspective, you know, it all begins with a sketchboard and an idea. And in this case, you know, we're working with Pablo and decided to create 2 outfits, one global and one representing Brazil. And the global one is representing the LGBTQ world. It was Pride Month, remember? And the other one is more Nico Panda and kind of our core sports, using Brazilian colors and flags. And what, you know, we've learned, no different than working with any designer, any creative, is, you know, it all begins with a deck where we share the collaboration of designs, working with digital artists, working with a similar language and visuals, so everybody's kind of understanding what we want to create. We're referencing things that we have done before. You know, we had worked with Victoria's Secrets, which was an odd pairing for Nico Panda, and designed their entire collection for Pink, for their catwalk show, which goes out to a giant audience on a network television. So we were looking at what we had done already in this atmosphere for the type of character that's showing up on NFTs. And then we were trying to also bring on board, you know, who Pablo is, what Pablo looks like, what Pablo likes. And, you know, this gives you an idea of the gestation of what the creative process looked like to get there. And now I'm going to show you a couple video clips that show you the beginnings and then the results of what that looked like. So hold tight, everyone. Here we go. Okay, there's one. Do this one next. The second look. Okay, and then the final image with all colors, renderings, the dress, everything in place. And the last one. Great. So So now you're going to ask, well, why would anybody want to buy a dress they can't wear from a tiny digital file living on Instagram and being promoted? Which is kind of a wonderful question. And I suppose no different than gaming. I think gaming is the best place to look to understand the value of NFTs. I think all of us have gotten, or many of us, or I'd say most of us, I mean, if we look back to Farmville, I think that was 7 or 8 or 9 years ago. When Farmville came out on Facebook, I think the majority of people using it were housewives, like over 45. And it was an extraordinary case study of people through a platform, Facebook being the platform, using a game called Farmville to buy and trade farm animals. And they were spending substantial amounts of money every month. It was record breaking, and that was 8 or 9 years ago. So, you know, and of course you had the socialization built in, you had a fun game built in, and a distraction, and people were prepared to spend money on this. And when we looked at that case study 7 or 8 years ago, when we were working on digital assets and programming and working with brands on ways to communicate through the various digital platforms that we were working on, we referenced Farmville. Because in our opinion, it was no different than that same consumer going on HSN or QVC and buying a bunch of stuff or junk they don't need and shoving it in a closet somewhere, right? What is valuable to you? In this case, an NFT dress to somebody who's a fan of Pablo or Nicola or Nico Panda, or just is seeing a value no different than a piece of art that they bought. They're investing either in something they love, something they want to own, or in the future. The technology that's coming out that many of you may be aware of is, and it's already available because we're working with, and it's available, I think, to a lot of people, is you're able to buy that dress and put it on your avatar and promote and send out your avatar. So there's now an interesting proposal of 2 of you, you know, living, the one in reality. And we can get a whole conversation about the singularity in reality, which I can talk about forever. But what is real? And I think that's the fun about all this stuff, is we get to play with the illusion of reality, no different than our government got to show us the illusion of money the last year and a half when they printed $3 trillion, which I don't know where it came from, but they managed to pull up and give away to everybody. So we're being shown a lot of illusions right now, and money is an illusion. And money was created by the French and the British, 500 years ago. Before that, there was no money. So we're back to, again, the idea of we took a piece of paper and said this piece of paper, we agreed that it's worth $15 or $20. And now we're applying that to a token, or in this case, an NFT, and in this case, a dress. So what happened was there was an auction, and the auction was limited to a period of time. And we all promoted it, all the artists, everybody promoted it on social. The auction happened, I think, in 20 minutes, and our NFT sold out in those 20 minutes. And I think the top price somebody paid for that NFT 2.5 months ago was $8,000, which is interesting, $8,000 for a little tiny dress from, listen, we're not a big, well-known designer. Pablo is not a big, well-known artist, except that inside the LGBT community. But there were enough people who saw a value in something, no different than when I went and bought my first piece of art from a gallery and went out there and looked and thought, what is this worth? What am I prepared to pay for it? And I want to own it. So it was a really interesting lesson, for all of us to see there was a value. And the beauty of this for us as well is that everybody shared in the return. So GLAD got a chunk of the money. We participated. The fabricant participated. The designer participated. Every single person who helped create this NFT made some money out of it. And I love that. That's not true in the art world. Well, it's true between the agent, the gallerist and the artist. But, would it be true of the person who inspired the artist that made that piece of art? We saw extraordinary things when Richard Prince, took Instagram images, turned them into art, and then sold them. And there was a lot of backflap about that. So we're in this wonderful, curious space that I love because, I love not knowing anything because I don't believe I know anything anyway. We're just in this business of not knowing. And, being able to work with people, one of the reasons I love working with Foley, and they've been such extraordinary partners, and this is not a PSA and I'm not being paid for this endorsement, is they, from the beginning, understood who we were and were right behind us supporting us, even though I think half the time they didn't understand many of the things we were doing. I don't know. We're starting on another NFT. We're working with an art opportunity in building NFTs. And, you know, one of the artists we work with gave me a good example, and hopefully this will wrap up. I'm hoping I'm not going over my time, but I'll be quick. He brought up an interesting example. He said, you know, this particular artist has been photographing this very famous bonsai tree, Japanese man in Japan who's renowned, right? And I don't know if you know this, but bonsai trees take up to 25, 35 years to create. And then they're sold to some wealthy business person, let's say in Japan, who buy this very expensive little tree that they're supposed to maintain. And inevitably, maybe they do or they forget and the thing dies. And in our conversation, you know, there's the possibility now with devices, hardware, where you can buy that bonsai tree. You can buy the NFT of that bonsai tree, and it will live on your device through a unique application. And the device will be able to display the bonsai tree in a 3D rendering that you will be able to look at on your desk, water and keep alive and look after and take with you anywhere you go. The rendering model of the bonsai tree. So I think we're going into places that none of us can imagine. And I'm very excited by what we can collaborate and create together. And I want to thank all of you for your time. And I look forward to hearing Andrew give better meaning and understanding to what I hopefully cracked into explaining. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. And I look forward to seeing what Nico Panda does next. And I might be a person who would buy that bonsai tree. That's probably the only kind of thing I could keep alive. So, but I think that was a perfect way to get into the legal aspects. And in fact, I already see one question about, you know, what does the person who spent $8,000 get in return? And we have the perfect person to answer that question, my colleague, Catherine Zhu. So, Catherine, you're up.
Hi, everyone. As Laura mentioned, I am a technology, business, commercial, and privacy lawyer in Silicon Valley, and I work, you know, quite extensively with, you know, players in the NFT ecosystem, beginning with the platform providers, which tended to be emerging companies, but now, you know, there are a lot of various players in this ecosystem, ranging from buyers to sellers, and sometimes the seller is different from the creator, to the platform, to partners of the platform. And it's very much, the NFT space is very much an ecosystem of people interacting with each other. And so this does create some interesting and novel legal issues, which I will walk us through briefly before passing it to my colleague, Gary. So when we're thinking about NFTs, especially kind of in, you know, some of the uses that Kevin mentioned, and other types of applications in the fashion space, there are a lot of legal areas that are implicated. And this includes, not first and foremost, intellectual property rights. And it also includes, you know, contractual terms, liability for each of these various parties and stakeholders mentioned previously. There's also regulatory concerns, especially financial regulations, and then some other kind of risk considerations that I'll go into. So starting with the IP rights. So, and this impacts everybody in the ecosystem, from the creator to the seller, to the buyer, to the platform, to the partners. Like it's all, everybody should be concerned about this. And, you know, depending on the platform that you're using, they are typically the ones who set the framework for an IP rights allocation. And there's been variances on this, but what we've really centralized around is, you know, the NFT is not necessarily a transfer of rights. It's of an ownership. It's more a license to the underlying content. Now, there are potential new applications of NFT technology where people are splitting up rights of ownership in the underlying content. So that's an emerging area. And it's all very important to understand kind of where those rights fall within this ecosystem. And depending on your position, whether you're a buyer, creator, seller, partner, or platform, kind of how you're protected in this and what you're giving away and what you're receiving. Now, in addition to the platform terms, sometimes sellers and creators will impose their own set of terms governing these NFT transactions. And this, you've seen, for example, like the Coca-Cola drops on OpenSea and some of these other institutional partners who are partnering with these platforms to launch NFT collections. They typically will impose their own terms on top of that. So if you're a buyer in particular, you would want to make sure that you understand from both areas what you're agreeing to. And then if you're a seller, you may want to follow in those footsteps and try to, clarify what your rights are by adding in additional contractual protections on top of the platform terms. Now, so that covers kind of your very basic interactions on the NFT marketplace. I think for folks in the audience and a lot of the recent work we're doing actually concerns orchestrating the NFT program beyond just participating in transactions in a existing marketplace. And this can be startups that we've worked with who are setting up a novel or kind of different NFT marketplace. It can also be institutional partners who are looking to partner with platform providers to create, a novel new type of NFT experience. And we did this recently with the Utah Jazz, who wanted to launch an NFT program, but unlike the other professional sports teams who had done collectible NFTs, they wanted to create an NFT that would be a ticket for accessing a fan event in the metaverse. And they are the first professional sports team to do this. And it really was, orchestrating that program, I think shows how the vast amount of possibilities for NFT technology and what it can be used at the engagement level. So if you are kind of, I would call an orchestrator, whether you're a platform or partnering with the platform, there are also additional rights or additional legal issues that you would need to be aware of beyond just if you are buying and selling in the marketplace. And this includes kind of making sure that your, technology is set up, or if you're not setting up the technology yourself, for example, you're partnering with a platform, making sure that there are assurances that this is set up properly. Because if there are issues with the minting, there's issues with transfer of ownership, and this is all done through smart contracts, but making sure that those are programmed correctly, that can definitely lead to liability for whoever is running the program. And in terms of setting up, an NFT marketplace or NFT program, and we've done quite a bit of Foley has done quite a bit of thought leadership on this. It's very important, whether you're the partnering with the platform or you're the platform itself, to make sure that you're putting forth the correct contractual limitations to protect yourself, because there's so many transactions that are happening, and there might be bad actors, or there might just be kind of, things. Maybe someone sells something and they claim it's authentic and it's not, right? Like, you don't want to be liable for that. So making sure that you're including the right contractual limitations, making sure that you are confident in the technological capabilities of the platform as well as the program that the NFT program that you're building. There's also going to be regulatory considerations, and a lot of this has been in the financial regulation space. So unique NFTs such as collectibles are not securities, but NFT, like the creativeness and diversity of the different NFT setups are evolving. So if you're selling fractional shares, if you're going on social media and trying to promote the value of certain NFTs, the combination of kind of this evolving, almost like unknown how we're going to apply this NFT ecosystem can result in potentially the NFTs being considered a security, in which case there's a whole slew of regulations that would apply to a security. For marketplace providers, there's also going to be know your customer considerations, and that's to prevent kind of bad actors from using money from financial institutions and purchasing things. So making sure that you're in compliance with that, as well as anti-money laundering regulations, will also be relevant, especially if you're trying to build a marketplace. And I think another risk and legal issue that's very relevant to the fashion world, especially fashion and art world, is the concept of insurance. Because a lot of the assets that are being traded as NFTs right now are very, very high value. And so the NFT insurance industry, I think, is still nascent. I don't even know that it exists. I think most people are having to get some sort of cyber insurance coverage to apply that to NFTs. There's not like dedicated NFT insurance yet, but there might be. But just taking that into consideration, like what if you, as the facilitator or the partner or the platform, if you lose a very, very valuable NFT, like what happens, right? So thinking about the insurance piece, especially when you're dealing with very high value NFT assets, is also, it's an emerging legal field, but it's also going to be relevant to your legal risk. Yeah, so that's a brief overview of kind of the many legal issues you'll encounter, and we didn't cover all of them. It was just a sampling of the very basics, starting with IP and contract terms, which impact buyers, creators, platform partners, everybody within that ecosystem. And then taking it a step further, if you are the person orchestrating either the marketplace or the program, for example, like an institution in partnership with NFT marketplace like OpenSea or something, there's going to be additional legal issues that you would need to consider on top of that. So with that, I will pass it to my colleague Gary to discuss more about some other blockchain and considerations for NFTs.
Thank you, Catherine. So while Kevin talked about the sexy side of NFTs, both literally and figuratively, Catherine hit upon some of the legal issues. I'm going to get into the guts of things. So I'm a patent attorney, and that's what I do. I get into the guts of how things work. So initially, and part of the reason for wanting to explain this is because as people work on these systems, you need to know, as part of the legal issues, how they work, because your terms and conditions and insurance or anything else that you're working on in many ways is based on the underlying platform that you're using. So quickly, blockchains are meant to operate in a different way than a centralized database. So a centralized database, everybody works within the same system and storage system. For distributed ledgers or blockchains, it's decentralized. And so all these devices will communicate with one another without having a centralized area. And where that really benefits is banks, for example, or trading platforms like stock exchanges, which are doing massive amounts of trades very quickly. And that's being centralized means that things don't work as fast as they need to sometimes. So decentralizing is a perfect application for distributed ledgers. So what are blockchains? And I wanted to do this because I want to show there's a couple of different definitions out there. Number one, they're Merriam-Webster define. I went and looked at see what are the various dictionaries define blockchain. So Merriam-Webster defines it as a digital database containing information that can be simultaneously used and shared within a large, decentralized, publicly accessible network. The technology is also at the heart of Bitcoin. So all these cryptocurrencies out there, blockchain is the heart of it. It's what the cryptocurrencies operate on. Blockchain is an open, distributed ledger that can record transactions between parties and in a verifiable and permanent way. And what that really says is that because it's operating in a trustless environment, the blockchain makes it so that people can inspect on an open platform to see who owns what, where coin may have come from, or in this case, where NFT may have come from. So who created the original content for that an NFT supports? So looking at Wikipedia, blockchain is a growing list of records called blocks that are linked together. So here's an example of an actual blockchain. And each block contains a cryptographic hash. So here's a hash, which is really just a number, just some computation and outputs a number of a previous block, a timestamp, and a transaction data. And the reason for the hash representing the previous block is so that as time goes on, there is the ability to compare to make sure that the previous block, the content hasn't changed. So you can run that same hash program, if you will, on that same computation on the previous block. If it doesn't match to the hash in the next block, you know there was a problem. Somebody tried to hack it. So there's what's called consensus, and this is the real strength of blockchain. And consensus means that if there's a blockchain, let's just say the Bitcoin blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain may be stored on 10 different computers, and the underlying technology of blockchain will continuously check to make it consensus to make sure that nothing has changed along the way. And as an example, what you see here is everything looks good in blockchain 1. All of a sudden, blockchain 2 changed, and it could be, which means that somebody tried to retroactively alter that. The issue is that now these other ones, blockchain 1, blockchain 10, 3 through 10, all say blockchain 2 should look like this, but now block 2 doesn't look like that. Now you got a problem. So the system will self-correct. It'll basically say, hey, we're going to reject what was being done with block 2. Now this is important because if you have an NFT and somebody tries to take over or change the ownership, the system using its consensus underlying principles will actually make sure that doesn't occur. So there's various uses of blockchain. So I looked, Motley Fool had a list of, okay, what are the 20 things people are doing with blockchains these days? Payment processing, monitoring, supply chains. This is a fast-related issue. If you're monitoring your supply chains, so from the very beginning all the way till it gets to the retail stores or ready to be distributed online. Retail loyalty programs, digital IDs, data sharing, copyright, and royalty protections. So the copyright can be quintessential in the fashion industry. Digital votings and real estate and so on and so forth. So there's 20 of these, but also NFTs. And when they published this, they weren't even looking at the NFTs at that point. So NFTs, so non-fungible tokens, is a unique and non-interchangeable unit of data stored on a digital ledger. So the reason I presented the blockchain first is because that's where NFTs live. So all the same benefits of blockchains are used to support the NFTs. They use to represent easily reproducible items such as photographs, videos, audios, so all the good stuff that Kevin was showing. those NFTs really show the ownership, where it's located, and when the ownership may change. And what's in there is when you look at these blocks, because this is an Ethereum blockchain, and most NFTs these days are residing on the Ethereum blockchain. It's a cryptocurrency blockchain, but it also supports the NFTs. But if you look in the blocks, there's your hash that was in the original, in the blockchain. There's a timestamp. There's your NFT. There's your NFT 1, and there's content link 1. So that content link is really linked to the data that's stored elsewhere. It may be stored in some server located on somewhere on the planet, but that NFT in this content link, these are what really define the ownership and where the content is physically located. Block 2, or I should say logically located, because it's logically located somewhere on the cloud, and physically it could be on some server somewhere. And the same thing goes as it goes on. So each of the NFTs will be stored on the Ethereum blockchain. Now, there are benefits to the blockchain. It operates as a distributed database, as I initially showed, as opposed to a centralized database, which, based on the volume of data, is just becoming overwhelming. The system operates very fast, so there are automatic updates to the blockchain. Consensus provides that security, which we went over, and that's very important to make sure that the data doesn't get corrupted or anything else. Data that's written into the blocks are permanent. In other words, once that transaction occurs, it can never be erased. And that's really an important thing, because as you want to trace NFTs ownership as it moves from person to person, you want to be able to trace all the way back. And that's the reason why blockchain is so effective for supporting NFTs. Smart contracts, which Catherine touched upon, smart contracts on the blockchain to perform financial transactions automatically in some cases. So there's a lot of, and Catherine will tell you, there's a lot of things that smart contracts can do. Now let's talk about some shortcomings. Those blockchains are based on cryptocurrency. With that cryptocurrency comes what you may have heard about is the mining aspect. That mining aspect consumes massive amounts of energy. China's already outlawed the mining over there because it consumes too much energy. Currently, just the Bitcoin cryptocurrency is consuming 121 terawatts of hours per year. That is very close to the entire consumption of Sweden of its energy per year. Blockchains generally only record the transactions. So in other words, the transactions occur, but the content isn't stored there. It's stored in some other place. So you have to hope that other file storage doesn't catch fire or get deleted somehow, or something happens to it, get a flood. Now, the Ethereum blockchain is currently at 991 gigabytes. So that blockchain is not being shared by anybody. It's residing off on some servers and being operated, but it's not. You won't physically have the Ethereum blockchain there. You'll have a coin. You'll have a coin in the NFT, but you won't have the entire blockchain in your possession. NFT shows proof of ownership. That's good. Content, artwork, as I mentioned, the NFTs are remote. The content's remotely located, so there is risk of loss. And again, back to what Catherine was saying, you might want to have some insurance for that. And for NFTs or crypto, you generally require digital wallets. And it's those digital wallets. If you ever lose a digital wallet, you've lost access to your crypto or your NFT, which means you've lost access to your content. So it does come with risk. Just hit us upon a few legal issues. As a patent attorney, I thought I'd hit a little bit on the intellectual property side. So there are patents for blockchains and NFTs. There are patents out there. So you can patent the structures, the systems, the uses for the blockchain. Same thing with NFTs. You can protect as well. So if anybody's going to be using various systems, you do have to worry about patent infringement. So it's nice to make sure if you're working with a provider of blockchains or NFTs, to know that you're going to have some level of protection because either they have patents or they're going to give you indemnification. Copyrights, the content that Kevin was describing, that all can be copywritten and filed at the Copyright Office. So it can be registered with the Copyright Office and protected in that manner. That also adds some level of protection to the NFT owner who owns that digital content. And contracts. As I mentioned, indemnification contracts for patent infringement, possibly also for copyright infringement. Insurance for loss of actual content. Again, if you don't own the content, if you don't have ownership of that content, or in other words, or physical control over that because it's located elsewhere on a cloud, you might want to worry about that. And then the smart contracts, which reside on the blockchains, are important to set the terms and conditions. If you're the content creator, set them up in a way that is beneficial to you. And that also, if you're an acquirer of an NFT, that you look at what the smart contract offers to make sure that it provides the adequate protection that's needed. Okay, so at this time, before moving on, for anybody who is getting CLE credit, I'm going to have Sharon provide the CLE information.
Thanks so much, Gary. At this time, I will announce the first CLE code. For attendees seeking CLE credit today, please type the following code into the box on your screen and hit the Submit button. The CLE code is T2OLY. Again, that is T as in Tom, the number 2, O as in Oscar, L as in Larry, the number 9, and Y as in yellow. We will leave the box open briefly. Once more, the first CLE code is T2OL9Y. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to be moving on to Andrew at Evergreen NFT. And before we get started, Andrew, I wanted to ask you just a couple of questions. One is, does your NFT consume the vast amount of power as other NFTs?
Gary, that's a great leading question for me, and the answer is no. We actually do NFTs using a blockchain technology that does not require mining in order to create an NFT. So no, Evergreen NFT is called Evergreen for a reason. We are a green NFT company.
Great. And number 2, how does your NFT secure the content for NFT owners?
And this is another core of the difference. We start by actually securing what I call the creation itself. So the design or the whatever the artist creates is what we start with. We secure it, and I'll explain how in a moment. But what we're trying to do very clearly is link the actual creation itself to the NFT. And that's what I'm going to try and get into. And some of the questions that are being asked, I'll hopefully actually answer as part of my presentation. But thank you for the lead-in, Gary. It's been fun working with you for the past many months.
Thank you.
So very quickly about Evergreen NFT, we are what we believe to be a very unique company in the world of data, but particularly in the world of NFTs, because, as I mentioned, we are very focused on the creator and the creation itself. We are a startup, if you like, although the technology is relatively mature, and we are in beta, and I'm happy to chat to people after this about how they can participate in the beta and learn more. But let me get started. So without repeating what Gary just said in his presentation, there are a couple of things that stood out for us when we were looking at the whole NFT market. And one of the things that came to light that we found very interesting, back on April the 2nd, The Atlantic published an article that we found absolutely fascinating. It was by a guy called Anil Dash, who, depending who you talk to, invented the NFT, specifically looking at the art world. And if you read the article, it starts off, NFTs weren't supposed to end like this. And the issue that he really highlights is that the NFT is split from the creation itself. And so as a creator and an artist, there's a proof of ownership that the NFT can verify, and it's all blockchain based. But if you go down to the last little bullet on here, there's one owner, but a million viewers. And so the ability of the creator to protect what they've actually created that is represented by the NFT is extraordinarily limited. And that was one of the things, other than the fact that mining is very resource intensive, that made us look at the NFT market as a potential place for us to bring our technology. So let me move on. Having said all that, and without being as articulate as Kevin was earlier, we did a little research on what's going on in fashion and beauty, and I'm going to highlight a couple of things I found really interesting. And the whole idea of wearing digital fashion that doesn't actually exist in physicality is taking off in a major way. And I picked DressX because when I went to look at the DressX site, I could actually find the NFT that Kevin referenced earlier. And if I owned the NFT, I could upload my photo and get it back in a couple of days with me wearing the actual NFT, the actual creation represented by the NFT. And I found that fascinating. There are many other fashions on the site that don't require an NFT. You just pay cash and upload your photo, and hey presto, you can post your photo onto your Instagram or whatever it might be, and show off fashion. I think it's a very interesting model, and it's definitely one that we've seen a couple of sites really go after, and it's sort of going the direction that Kevin was mentioning, that if you go a few years out and you think about the metaverse that is all coming, having your avatars dressed in the way that you want them to is kind of interesting. And it takes me on to the next one, which of all brands that I wouldn't have expected to go ahead with something like this, Burberry. Burberry struck a deal with a games company a couple of years back, or actually maybe it was last year. And they are collaborating to dress the avatars or the characters, if you like, in the games with Burberry fashion. And it works. I mean, they sold out what they called Sharky B, and I believe this was Sharky B, and they sold out in 30 seconds at $300 each. And now on the secondary market, they are trading at $1,000. And it's just another interesting example of a brand that I wouldn't have expected to get into this so quickly, who is going full in on the whole idea of NFTs and what I find particularly interesting, collaboration with other creative elements in the metaverse, if you like. Just some sample news of people who are getting into this and what they're doing. Experimentation. I love the headline. Their first NFT might be the most expensive thing they ever sold, and I believe that because the hype behind the NFT market, quite honestly, these days is extraordinary. The secondary market is huge. If you actually read, as I'm sure you will have, some of the press around why NFTs are so hot, it's all about the speculation of if I buy it for this price, can I sell it for more? And it works. And the thing that struck me about the Gucci bag was that the NFT costs more than the physical bag itself on the secondary market. This is not just fashion. Beauty's also testing this out, and there was a lovely quote that I put on here, but it's the same basic thinking of if I can dress up in a digital fashion, I can also get made up in a digital way and put that on my avatar or on my Instagram or whatever I want to do with it. So this is happening, and it's going to keep going, and there's a lot of, as Kevin said, there's a lot of opportunity for fashion, for beauty, to really use the NFT in a number of ways. One of them is how do I drive more sale of my physical product? How do I create a market myself? How do I bring more consumers in? But there are definitely opportunities being tried, and we're very bullish on it. So let me talk a little bit about Evergreen NFT and really what drove us. Both my partner and I have worked in media. And we have somewhat of a personal interest in the idea of a creator getting the return that they should from the creations that they produce. And the market today is very stacked against them. The whole concept of ownership and exclusivity has disappeared with the internet. The commercial models have moved towards very, very low return models like streaming. Once on the internet, not safe, typically. And so piracy is a massive issue across all levels of digital media, even today. And frankly, I think it's the same for fashion. If I think about, let's say, an independent designer who creates this incredible digital fashion and wants to sell it, how do they protect it? The NFT world proves ownership, but doesn't actually protect against piracy of the creation. We talked earlier about digital rights management and copyright. Extraordinarily difficult to do unless you're paying attention to what's going on with the creations that you've got on the internet and are willing to, as some clients are and some clients are not, some companies are and some companies are not, to actually go after people that you find are using your creations in a way that's not legal, if you like. And all of this leads to the creators losing revenue, which is frankly the issue that we want to try and help solve. So let me move on. So we focus, as I said right up front, we are the only platform that I am aware of that actually writes the creation itself to the blockchain. If you actually read some of the commentary about the problems of ownership and challenges with the NFT market, nobody else has figured out how to actually write the creation to the blockchain itself, and that's what we do. We actually write each individual creation to its own individual blockchain, which means that we can write rules, copyright rules, usage rules, any type of rule that the artist and creator want to define for the creation that they are selling. And we can do it specifically at the individual creation level. And so, for example, just to use a music example just for a moment, if I'm an artist who wants to release a song and I want to release 24 NFTs representing 24 copies of that song, and each song only plays for 1 hour of the day, we can do that because we actually control the creation itself. Similarly, we can apply the smart contract and the commercial constructs specifically to the creation. So if there is a collaboration associated with what is presented as an NFT, we can build that collaboration and the revenue split that should take place into the end of the blockchain associated with the creation, and that smart contract stays with that creation throughout its lifestyle. So what this all means is that, like all other NFTs, we can prove ownership by writing a sale or a transaction that someone buys an NFT. We can write that transaction to our blockchain, and by definition, it is a blockchain validated proof of ownership. So we're essentially doing the same thing that all other NFTs do. We can prove ownership. But not only that, because we control the creation, if you buy the NFT, we can give you exclusive rights to see, use, and enjoy the creation that you bought with that NFT, which again is something that the current NFT marketplace does not try to solve. And I'll talk a little more about sequential smart contracts. And I realize this is somewhat different to the way that NFTs are handled today and people talk about them, but that's frankly why we've spent the last several months working with Gary putting together our 150-page patent, because we believe this is very different. And to use a term that I try not to use very often, it's kind of a paradigm shift in the way that we're trying to help creators generate what they should. So I am, in fact, going to show, if I can do this right, a video. It's not a pretty video because we are in beta, but I see it's working. It basically shows how a creator would create an NFT. And what you will see through here, they are answering a few very simple questions. They are deciding how many they want to sell, a price to be associated with, and we will have auction, a brief description of what it is, which will form part of the description of the NFT that is actually sold on a marketplace. They upload a file, which is coming soon, and they can upload a piece of art that actually is a sort of a thumbnail, if you like, of what they are trying to sell. And my colleague, being who he is, decided to spend a little more time than he should have done writing the description, but essentially it's like anything else, go find a file, upload it, go find the art, press play, and we are creating an NFT. No mining required at all. And that is as simple as that. Everything else is taken care of by us on the back end. And here, presto, there is the NFT. Now, if you go to the next one, which hopefully will come up. Whoops, what have I done? I see Catherine. Can you actually see the video, or have I done something stupid here? Aha, here we go. I think this is still the first one. Shannon, what have I done? Well, anyway, what the second video would show you is, in fact, that the NFT that's just being created can be pulled up in a viewer that is open to can only be seen by the creator of the NFT. Now that NFT will become available to and viewed by, here we go, the second video, the person that has actually bought the NFT. I don't know what you're seeing, but what I'm seeing is okay, here we go. All right, so the NFT we've just created shows up on the screen on the left, which essentially represents the person who has either created or purchased the NFT. They click on it, and it should open up momentarily as what was produced. And so what the videos are trying to show is how simple this is to do it. So no mining, and the ability for somebody who actually owns the NFT to see it and open it and enjoy it. I want to talk a moment about this slide called smart contracts. Sequential smart contracts. Again, within our patent, we've built in the ability to create smart contracts that are relevant at each stage of the creation's life cycle. So the example here, very simply, it's a video. And it could be a video of a fashion show or a particular event which is fashion related. And the user or the owner of the video creates a 30-second edited clip and decides that they want to sell it for 10 cents per stream. And that's the smart contract that is established at the point of time that it is created. User 2 picks up, perhaps through an NFT, that video and uses it in a funniest animal compilation. And the smart contract there that user 2 establishes is that for each stream, the viewer pays $1. Now, the combination of those smart contracts means that what we would do in the back end is take that $1, user 1 gets their 10 cents, and user 2 gets the rest of it. So we're able to sequentially process smart contracts so that throughout the life cycle, and if you look at user 3, you'll see we're doing basically the same thing, to ensure that the rights associated with the creation and the revenue associated with those rights are properly distributed throughout the life cycle. And it works across different types of revenue. If you look at user 4 on the right, it's actually used in a network comment for some reason. The revenue associated with that particular use case of 30 cents in ad revenue, that revenue can be split as well, automatically through the sequential smart contracts. Conscious of time, I want to leave time for questions. So I want to wrap this up. We do believe we're different. Although we are launching with a marketplace of our own, which will actually be a dollar cash credit card, not cash, but a credit card PayPal marketplace, we are essentially marketplace agnostic. What we're trying to do is provide the protection to creators across all the NFT marketplaces today that help them actually tie and secure and control their creation and make sure that they get what they deserve from what they've created without losing control over it. We are trying to limit piracy. We are being told several times that we're essentially a Napster killer about 20 years too late. Now, all of this works in the design industry or the fashion industry as well, as far as we can see it. There are all sorts of creations that take place, we imagine, and all the way through the life cycle. The design, as I said in my example earlier, formulas for particular new fragrances or whatever it is. And it's a process. You can create an NFT at every step of this process, whether you sell them or not. And from the creative standpoint, we're trying to let them be creative. My example of the music playing for 1 hour a day, let's think about it in fashion. Let's take an NFT that somebody can wear in their digital fashion show or digital avatar. Guess what? If you only want it to be used once, we can do that. We can absolutely create scarcity because we can control and protect the actual creation itself. And through the smart contracts, we can at least apply a level of enforcement that we don't think exists today in the NFT market to the actual creation itself, not just the NFT. And in summary, we really are trying to do good with this. And to go back to what Kevin was saying earlier, we believe in what we're doing because we believe that we can change and make sure that creators are protected in this new digital world in a way that they are not today. And NFTs is a way for us to do that. I think that is it. Shannon, back to you, because you've got the CLE code back up again.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Yes, at this time, I will announce the second CLE code. For attendees seeking CLE credit today, please type the following code into the box on your screen and hit the submit button. The second CLE code is IR9F4. Again, that is I as in igloo, R as in Robert, the number 9, F as in Frank, and the number 4. We will leave the box open briefly. Once more, the second CLE code is IR9F4. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Shannon, for that. And thank you to all the speakers. That was really interesting. I know that I learned some things, and hopefully our audience did too. We do have a few questions, and we have a little bit of time, so that's great. So I'm going to read off a couple of them, and then I'll say your name if I think you can answer. But this really goes for any of the panelists. If you have something to add, feel free to chime in. But I think the first question here is, what stops people from screenshotting and selling an NFT? How do you know what's authentic? And I mean, I can jump in quickly on this, and then either Catherine or Gary, you can too. I mean, that's the whole allure of an NFT, right? It's the fact that anyone can screenshot it, and no one would know the difference, except the fact that the actual owner will have a token on the blockchain that identifies them and only them as the owner. So the allure is the fact that you're the only person that can claim to be the authentic owner, and it's something that's verifiable because it's out in the public, it's in a public blockchain, so you can see it there. I don't know if Catherine or Gary, you want to chime in as well?
Actually, Laura, do you mind if I do?
Yes,
because
please.
This is Andrew again. You're absolutely right in the sense that the NFT can prove ownership. But it comes back to the problem of if you've got multiple versions out there, what does that ownership really mean? Now, we can't stop someone from screenshotting. That's kind of difficult to do, and reselling it. However, there are a couple of things that we can do with the platform that makes this a whole lot more difficult. And that is, if we control the content, we can prevent peer-to-peer sharing, because only the NFT owner has the key to actually unlock the creation itself and view it or see it or whatever they want to do with it. And so if somebody downloaded or attempted to download that creation and pass it on to somebody who didn't own the NFT, it wouldn't work. So we can solve the peer-to-peer problem if that's what the artist wants to do. But you're right about screenshotting. Similarly with music or a video, if someone takes a smartphone and videos the screen while it's playing, can't do much about that. The thing that we also can do, though, is attach an artist-verified certificate of authentication, which is different from the NFT token, to the actual real version of the creation itself. So there are things that we can do to help solve this problem of piracy, but this particular one, screenshotting, no, that's pretty hard to do.
I'll just add one thing to that, to go off what was just said, in that I do think there will be technical innovation to solve this problem. I think earlier this week, Adobe has come out with a product where they can actually authenticate that someone created a digital artwork rather than just screenshotted it. So that's built into the metadata that they, went through the actual process and was the creator. And that's baked into these creator verified NFT technology that Adobe has just announced. So I do think there is hope on the technological front for that.
That's awesome.
Well, keeping with that notion of, the concern for people copying it, we also got another question that I think is interesting. Do you think NFTs create any new issues for the enforcement of IP, or is it just a matter of applying existing IP law to this new medium? Do we think that we need new IP laws to fit this purpose? Gary, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I don't, at least not at the moment. There may be some more contractual issues that come up, but as far as patents go, I think that'll stay as is. It's meant to deal with technology. Copyright law, same thing. So I don't see anything new coming in. I may be wrong, but at the moment, for the times that I've been practicing dealing with NFTs and blockchains over the last several years, I haven't seen anything new that would dictate new law to come into play.
Yeah, I think that, I think that the law is there, but I do think that more in the contracts, when you're looking at existing contracts and license agreements in particular, that's where this new technology and how NFTs fit in may be something that will need to be incorporated, or we're going to just have to, use the law as it is on old contracts, because obviously there are some license agreements where this NFT technology was never contemplated. So is the licensee, if they have the right to use certain trademarks or copyrighted items, are they able to create an NFT? Is that part of the license grant if that's not defined? So I think it'll come in more in the context, like you mentioned, of those contracts and maybe having to review them and update them for this technology and make provisions for those. We got a couple of questions here on smart contracts. And so maybe Catherine, you can answer this. A couple people want to know, what are the limitations of smart contracts? And it kind of combined with that one, does it make sense for creators to update terms and conditions of service to be able to help secure even more rights or protect the rights of the creators in terms of how you manage that with the smart contracts?
That's a great question. So I think the term smart contract has been kind of, to me as well, it implies that there's an actual contract when there, like legal contract, when there isn't. So the smart contract is not a legal contract. It's a predetermined code essentially that will execute when certain conditions are met. So for example, if you were to mint an NFT, right, you would put in all this information, you would go through a set of actions, and that would meet the preconditions of the smart contract, and then the smart contract will then execute what it's supposed to do, and it will, write that record on the blockchain to mint your NFT and whatever else has been programmed into it. So I think from a rights standpoint, there are certain things you can program into the smart contract, like how much royalties you're going to be paid. Basically, like if it's something that can be done from a technical standpoint, you can do it. From a legal liability standpoint, I'm not aware, and maybe the technology will evolve, but not aware currently of the smart contracts being used, as like the governing contract. It's more like the tool essentially for orchestrating all of these transactions. And for going to the answer about the question about the creators and, protecting your rights there, you can, I think, as a participant in the marketplaces, like OpenSea, for example, you do have the opportunity to attach additional terms to NFTs that you mint. I would say as the buyer, you don't really have that much flexibility in rejecting the terms. Like you kind of just, whatever the creator puts on the NFT and then also the platform terms, that's typically what they are. I think sometimes we've seen collaborations now where it's not just one creator, right? It's like an artist, a famous person potentially collaborating with a platform or an NFT design house, almost like a collaboration to create an NFT. In that case, there's going to be another layer of contracts between the collaborators, and you can definitely allocate rights because those are written contracts. You can definitely allocate rights at the creator level, especially if there's going to be multiple parties working together.
Can I again just add to that from the Evergreen standpoint? And the answer is yes. And if you tie those, call them smart contracts or your rights or however you want that creation to be used to the creation itself, then you can actually enforce them physically. So if you buy an NFT associated with the creation that can be used 5 times, it won't work the 6th time. You won't be able to see it or play it or whatever. So the ability for a creator to add more control and rights into the creation itself is definitely there, the way that we're trying to approach this. Similarly with the financials, as Catherine was saying, the actual enforcement of the collaboration and the various revenue splits and agreements that are established during that creation process can be written into the smart contract and enforced every time that NFT is used.
Laura, can I jump in quickly?
Yes, please, Kevin.
So there were 2 things I wanted to bring up. We were talking about the uniqueness of the NFT and screenshotting. There's technology that we're working with, that I'm sure Andrew's well aware of as well, that will allow through AR, VR for you to experience an NFT in a way that nobody else can. So I'll give you an example. Damien Hirst Shark Tanks, right? So you want to buy a Shark Tank, but you don't have 35 million to go and buy one, and you don't even have 50,000 to own a print of it, but you would like to have the experience of an NFT Shark Tank, which Damien would create an immersive experience that would only be available through Oculus. So in buying the NFT, you would be issued a unique code for an app available only on your phone, and that app would only be available to you to be used with the device that you've also been sent. So when somebody comes to your house and you want to say, I want to show you my Damien Hirst, they can only experience it through your device with the app you've been given with the registration associated to that NFT. So with technology is coming all sorts of opportunities to own things that are absolutely unique. You could not screen grab that experience. You could not take a picture of that experience. It only exists in AR or VR. The other thing I just wanted to quickly ask was the first question from Jeffrey Hellman about what does the person who spent $8,000 get in return. Well, there were 10 dresses issued in the auction, and 10 people got to buy those 10 versions, those 10 unique versions. They're different than buying a piece of haute couture. You now own a piece of haute couture that you can resell. And with regards to avatars and how you wear it, you can go to a platform like DressX, where you can try on different designs in real time on your phone and experience Burberry or other designers, or in this case, even one that you purchased and bought, and share and sell it. So I think it's the advent of technology that's going to be opening up the value of NFT, the uniqueness of the NFT, and things that we just can't imagine.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. We have a question here for Andrew. They thought your presentation was fascinating, as did I. But they want to know, so there was a lot of talk about what you can do for the creator, like a writer of a song or an artist. However, if someone buys a piece of art and wants to create an NFT, how does the creator get compensated or covered? So this is the part that I think is going to be really interesting. I'm interested to hear how you're going to tackle it, but I think that this is the part that is kind of the game changer of just NFTs and the technology in general, is that many times the creator just gets paid that one time. So, you know, somebody buys the Gucci bag, the Hermes bag, and that's the one time, but those things are very valuable, you know, in the real world, and they could increase in price. And so how does the creator get to tap into that? And NFTs, in a way, and I think that's why it's going to change the music industry too, creates the ability for creators to get paid on the secondary market if there's a inclusion in the smart contract that they get a percentage of each resale. And I think that really has the ability to kind of change things. But if Andrew, if you can take this question, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, Harry, nice to meet you, and it is a great question. And if I understand the question correctly, the sequential smart contract processing that I tried to explain, probably not very well, would take care of that, because the creator of the art itself would create an NFT associated with a smart contract, associated with what they want to earn from it. So they could say, okay, you can buy this and you have the right to create an NFT, but every time that NFT is sold, you have to send me X% of the actual of the contract, of the proceeds, and that can be written into the actual NFT associated, or the art associated with the NFT itself. So every time that art is used in some other way, the creator gets paid, because that smart contract goes with the art every time it's used. And because it's contained and stored in blockchain, we know every time it's used. So we can enforce it, because every time that art is accessed, it's being accessed with the smart contract defined with it. That's traveling with it in blockchain.
And let me add one thing, Andrew. So when this goes to the overriding question, which is when the artist creates it, they can set up their contract. When they sell it, that contract can have or doesn't have to have redistribution rights. So let's say you sell it to, like, a song is created. That song could then, by the buyer, the NFT owner, can then sell it off to a movie to be put into a movie. That if they have redistribution rights, that can then be set up with another smart contract to that movie company. If it goes to television, they can set up another smart contract to the television company. And every time that plays, the money from that smart contract from each of the different sides can get taken care of right away. As soon as it plays, boom, the money comes in, and then the money goes back to the original artist, because that original artist had that contract. So these cascading smart contracts on the Evergreen platform, Evergreen NFT platform, allows for that secondary contracts, tertiary, right down the line, and the original contract, and every contract along the line can set up its own terms within the guidelines of each contract that came before it. So if you allow for redistribution rights or rights in certain arenas and not others, or a certain number of plays or certain number of prints, each one of those can be enforced right on the contract, right on the quote-unquote smart contract, as Catherine would say. And then it's merely, it defines the uses of the content.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for that explanation. And I want to just thank all the panelists. You guys were all amazing. And I hope that the attendees, you all enjoyed it. If we didn't get to all your questions, there's a few more. We will get to you offline. But really, we encourage you to fill out the survey. Let us know if you want to hear about anything else in this space. We're always looking to provide additional valuable content. So let us know what you're interested in, and we thank you all. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. See you at the next one.
Thank you. Thank you.